What's up, everybody? Coach Daisha here, bringing you this week's hot topic. And today I want to talk about something that is very essential to strength training, and that's understanding sets, reps, volume, and rest time. So let's get to it. First up are repetitions, or reps for short. Simply means doing one complete motion of any exercise movement. So for today's purposes, I'm going to be using bicep curls as our example. If I do one bicep curl, that is one repetition. If I do 5 bicep curls, that is 5 repetitions or reps. Next up are sets. And very simply, a set is a collection of repetitions. So back to our example. If I do 10 repetitions of bicep curls and then take a break, I have done one set of bicep curls. After that break, if I come back and do another 10 repetitions of bicep curls, then now I have done 2 sets of bicep curls. So once again, a set is simply a collection of repetitions. The next concept to understand is volume. And volume, simply put, are your sets multiplied by your repetitions. This gets really important when you need to find ways to manipulate your workout routine. So, in the example that we've been using, our bicep curls, if I were to do 3 sets of 10 repetitions, then my volume for bicep curls would be 30 bicep curls. I simply take that 3 times that 10. It's really important, once again, to understand this concept of volume, because if you need to increase or decrease how much you're doing in any given workout, one of the best ways to do it is by manipulating the volume. Lastly is volume load. This is where we take into account the load or the weight that you are using for that movement. So back to our bicep curls. Let's say I'm holding a 10-pound dumbbell in my hand as I do those bicep curls. Now we've got 3 sets of 10 repetitions at 10 pounds with the dumbbell. Now we have a volume load of 300, meaning at the end of our workout, we will have lifted 300 pounds in bicep curls. Once again, volume and volume load really come into play when it's time to manipulate our workouts and make them work for us and not against us. So as I mentioned before, you can use the volume and the volume load to manipulate your workouts for certain situations. One of the most common situations that I have with my clients is a lack of weights. They just don't have a variety of weights to be able to start to challenge themselves once they've gotten to a certain threshold. So with that said, once you understand that volume and volume load exist, you now know that you can manipulate those numbers to get the same type of workout. So let's go back to our bicep curls for our example. Once again, if I'm doing 3 sets, 10 repetitions using a 10-pound dumbbell, once again, we know that that volume load is going to be 300 pounds. But I don't have access to anything higher than a 10-pound dumbbell. That's it. That's where I max out at home. So how can I increase what I'm doing? How can I continue to challenge my body? Well, the easiest way here would be to manipulate your repetitions. So instead of doing 10 repetitions, let's say you do 12 repetitions. Now you do 3 sets, 12 repetitions, still using your 10-pound dumbbell. And now we've got 3 times 12, which is 36. That 36 times 10, now we're at 360. You just increased your volume load by 60 pounds by simply increasing your repetitions. So this is a really good alternative for those people who don't have weights at home. Another situation where you might want to manipulate these numbers is if you have a certain condition or injury that might keep you from lifting or holding on to heavier dumbbells. Once again, you can use the prior example where we increase the repetitions to increase your overall volume load. You do not have to have a crazy amount of equipment at home to still get a great workout in. If you understand that all you need to do is manipulate your repetitions, or you can also manipulate your sets. Manipulating sets is a really great way for beginners to get into exercise. So in our prior example, I've been doing 3 sets of bicep curls. But let's say you're a beginner to exercise. Let's manipulate those sets and bring it down to 2. Now, if I do 2 sets of 10 repetitions using whatever weight I want it to use, even if it is a 10-pound weight to start with, now our volume comes down to 200 pounds that we've lifted as opposed to 300 pounds. And that could be a great way for a beginner to start their workout routines. And lastly, when you're manipulating the numbers, for some people, it's time to manipulate the numbers because we need to go up, right? Our body has been doing the same thing for quite some time, and it's time to challenge ourselves. So you can actually, in this case, manipulate any of the numbers that you want to, whether it be the sets, the reps, or the weight that you're using. I always encourage my clients to increase your repetitions first. And after you've done that for 2 to 3 weeks, then you can stay at that same sets and reps, but now increase the weight. Just remember, if you don't have access to more weights, you can always manipulate the sets and reps instead. But if you do have access to a variety of weights, make sure that you are increasing those weights whenever it's getting easy for you to finish your repetitions. So here's the part that you probably really came to this video for. What are the recommendations if you have osteoporosis or osteopenia? It's pretty simple. First, let's start with sets. You want to aim for 2 to 3 sets of any exercise. 2 for our beginners, 3 for our intermediate or advanced fitness levels. For repetitions, aim between 8 and 12 repetitions. As you can see, 10 kind of sits right in the middle of those 2 numbers. 8 repetitions would be for those of you lifting heavier weights, probably more advanced in your workouts. 12 might be for my beginners where you're using lighter weights. 10 is always going to be our benchmark and what we're aiming for our overall general fitness. Now, when it comes to trying to pick a weight, what are we looking for here? Well, a lot of times the weight recommendation comes off of what we call your 1 repetition max or 1 rep max, meaning in the case of our bicep curl, what is the weight where we can only do 1 repetition? We can't possibly do a second one. That really, really high weight is going to be considered your 1 rep max. So we usually take a percentage of that number to determine what you're going to use for your 8 repetitions, 10 repetitions, or 12 repetitions. One of the easiest ways to figure this out is to simply take a weight that you currently have and see if you can do 10 repetitions with it. If you can easily do 10 repetitions with it, then you want to slowly increase that weight by maybe 2.5 to 3 pounds if possible. And then try again. Can you do 10 repetitions with that current weight? What you're aiming for is, if you want 10 repetitions, you want repetition 8, repetition 9, and rep 10 to be very challenging. Basically, you want to barely be able to get through rep 10, still maintaining your proper form and technique. Once you find that weight, that is the weight that you're going to be using for a couple of weeks, once again, with your 2 to 3 sets, 10 repetitions of that move. Rest time. Because we're keeping the repetitions on the higher side, we're not anywhere close to like 6 or 8 reps. We're probably somewhere between that 8 and 12 repetition mark. This means our rest time can be shorter. You can aim for anywhere between 60 seconds and 90 seconds of rest time between your sets. So in our example of bicep curls, if you were doing straight sets, meaning you're only going to do bicep curls for 3 sets before you move on to another move, you can do your 10 repetitions of the bicep curls, take 1 minute off, come back and do your second set of bicep curls, take 1 minute off, and then do your third set. That is if you're doing straight sets of your move. Last but certainly not least, how many days per week are we strength training? For my beginners, you want to start with 2 days per week. For my more intermediate, maybe advanced fitness levels, aim for 3 days of strength training. The key here is to make sure that you take 1 full day off between strength training sessions. So if you're going to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that would be a perfect schedule for 3 days per week. If you're at 2 days per week, you get to play with that, right? It could be Monday, Wednesday, but it could obviously be Monday, Thursday. You get to look at your personal schedule and decide what makes the most sense for you. And that's it. Quick overview of sets, reps, volume, rest time, all the good stuff that are what we consider the foundation of strength training. And don't forget to join me next week for another hot topic. I'll see you soon.